So today, we're going to look at the state of the market, where we're at from the last price action, and a couple of interesting news articles and things that could affect price action. And then one thing that I think is a little curious, but I want to look at it anyway. I don't know if it's exactly true. So if later turns out to not be true, hey, I don't know. But we're going to do a little bit of due diligence on the charts real quick. So what do we got? From the last idea, we're talking about this bull play out so far. It's looking pretty good. This is the daily chart. There's been a little bit of pullback. Obviously, if we're looking at that higher, we talked about, it could come all the way down and make another bottom and go a lot more sideways, or it could just pull out right there and kind of get sharp and do its thing. Also, you got one here, so you're fractaling out. Now, if you look at it on the lower time frames, it looks pretty nasty. It's come back, kind of decently. Like, I'd taken a long right in there and I missed it. I was making a video and editing. I'd taken it for a quick trade, not a long trade. But this idea that I'm talking about here is a super long trade. It's like multi-week, multi-month potentially. So sometimes I'm talking about blended ideas between high time frame targets and what's going on when I'm trading, super low time frame. So as we drop lower time frames, it's pumping back up a little bit. But one of the things we got going on the horizon that could make this bull change from just being the edge now to being a bottom sweep is we got tomorrow. We got the Fed to hike by 75 basis points again on November 2nd. Possibly should pause when inflation halves. That hasn't happened. If we look over here at the Board of Governors, Federal Reserve, they have a meeting tomorrow at 2. Every time he spoke's been a bit of a problem. So it's something that I would keep in mind. That if you're, expecting that move to complete now up to 22, might not happen. It could be that multi-week, multi-month, or it could just absorb. If it absorbs, that gives you an idea of strength versus if it tanks, it gives you an idea of the overall more general market. I'm still of the mind that overall they're trying to make midterms look as good as they can. So they're going to do whatever they can to keep people kind of happy. I'm going to try to keep in that play of, playing in that tight range between the top of 20,000 into the 21 check underneath and the bottom sweeps of, 18,900 and whatever, so basically 19,000 to 21 is like my range to play for a while on the inside moves down on the lower bars because I generally trade high leverage. So, a $200 move is, 50% returns and it's looking pretty decent, overall, that is the pullback. On the leading edge there, it's had a little bit of dumping. This is the weekend stuff always looks like that. I don't really think about it too much. When I look at stuff like that, I pop over to, the higher time frame and see if there's any obvious patterns or anything going on that kind of, give me some guidelines to future targets. And the future target again, is 22 to 23 and then 25 and whatnot. And tomorrow, something that could draw that back and get you a really good entry would be something like the basis points. I am not a registered financial advisor. I'm not suggesting you trade. I'm not suggesting you do anything other than watch the videos, like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Now let's look at some other stuff going on here. This I thought was really interesting because it does kind of go along with the multi-month idea. I do still believe in 9,600 gap fill at some point. Before 40K though anymore? Maybe not. It's switching. Again though, it might all look disastrous after midterms. So I don't want to commit to anything too much other than just, playing the leading edge inside of $1,000 range. And if it gets down to 18, it looks like, strength, then I'll go long. If it looks bad, I'll go short. But Bitcoin options, market signals bottom as skews climb to 0. So this is the news of the day for me. This is what I found to be most interesting and most relevant next to the board of directors of something that could cause a move. This, kind of is offsetting news compared to a basis point hike. Basis point messes with everyone immediately. Options market is everyone that just got affected, and they're saying that the market sentiment has returned to neutral after a long time. A volatility trader said, noting the recovery in both long-term and short-term option skews. Well, it means things are finally starting to quiet down and get back to normal. Maybe less emotions, maybe less panic, maybe a little more logic. Let's go through the rest of this article. Let's talk about some highlights. Because this is the news of the day for me that is the most potential to signal a further move into the future of a direction. So the options market tracking Bitcoin suggests that once overwhelming fear of an extended slide has subsided, a sign that the worst may be over for the price of the cryptocurrency. I kind of agree. It's possible. A call option gives the purchaser the right but not the obligation to buy the underlying asset at a predetermined price on or before a specific date. A put option gives the right to sell. Implied volatility refers to expectations, kind of key right there, expectations for price turbulence over a particular period, and is influenced by demand, also kind of an important word, demand for options. So between the expectation of what everyone else sees, it's starting to level out to zero. It's not been seen for a long time, since like back in May, I think they said. So now that expectation is starting to get a little more in line, even though the world looks crazy and there's basis points going on, it's maybe starting to get a little priced in. People are getting a little more used to that. It's not like shocking news anymore. They're just kind of like, that's cool. And then that's causing some demand. So that's interesting to see. So if we bump down here, and they've looked at, like, they're talking about the basis points. The Fed is likely to raise rates by 75 basis points on Wednesday and signal a step down to 50 basis points in December. That said, it's still a little early to bet on a price rally by purchasing call options, according to options analyst firm's Genesis Volatility. Yeah, that's a good point. That's what I'm talking about. Into the future, like, there are these indicators, just like Wyckoff, every move is always kind of telegraphed, generally, to some degree. They really need headlines to get all the people in line. If all the news coming out is war and desolation and despair, generally, the market's marking down, and everyone's like, oh, woe is me, dude. Like, it was 69,000. It's time to get out of this piece of shit. I'm done. And at 19,000, they're finally like, man, I held on forever. I'm going to capitulate. That's how that happens, right? And then all of a sudden, there's like this little glimmer of Wyckoff news in the background, of some, weird little article. And instead of it being 100% negative, there's some dude out there that's like, have you noticed that in the future, don't trade on this now. But that said, it's still a little early to bet on a price rally. But friend, do think about it. They're starting to plant seeds of this kind of bullshit. So the way the Wyckoff, works with headlines and moving the crowd, they are starting to plant the seeds. They're starting to tell you, hey, if you've been a short seller, even though there might be a little more downside, be aware, it might be time. Might be time, friend. And they're going to plant that seed. And then, in a few weeks, it'll be 90% negative and 10% positive of like, could this be the time? Is Christmas the time to buy Bitcoin? And then, on and on until it's like 50% positive, 50% negative. And eventually it'll start to gain steam. And then, headlines flip. And it starts to bring in the latecomers and the chasers, the people that, were like 19's the end. And at 30, they're like, never again, never again. This is a bullshit rally. And then all of a sudden it's 90% positive news and 10% negative. And then it goes to 100% positive. And now you've got all these chasers and all the guys that bought at 90%, 90% downstroke, like at 15 and 17 and 19,000, they're unloading again. They're taking their profits because the chasers are coming in. The headlines are good. And now the same cycle in reverse. Could this be the top? And you'll get these one-off little shitty articles that are just starting to plant the seeds for Wyckoff, things for them to hide behind to move the markets and align people so that people can actually move the markets. Like, they don't have to cheat the markets. They just have to get the people to make the moves that they want them to make. So if you have all these negative headlines, like, is it time to buy now? Not yet. That means somebody's buying somewhere. They're loading up. And they're going to get loaded up, and then they're going to change the headlines to, it now does seem to be the time. If you missed out before, friend, don't get left behind. And then the next group gets in and it starts to pump. And then they're like, yo, it's the time. This indicator over here says it's time. Let's do this thing. And there you go. You've got your 3 steps. You've got your chart from, a bull market to a bear market. And then, you've got your capitulation. You've got your blow off tops. Do I still believe in 9,600? I do, but not before a bear wave rally. The B wave, which comes after the drop, and it's, maybe up in the 40K range. I still see that looking good. Looking through this, like, this is the news I'm looking for. Exactly like this. A little glimmer of hope. That tells me, maybe I do go long, a little early if I'm in swing versus a day trade. And maybe it does break down again. I'm not too worried about it because I already see the news starting to change. I see them making the effort. But I do not want to get caught short in the fact that that news is only changing short-term for midterm elections. When will this change 100% positive? The next halving, 100%. They're not stupid. They know when to run this crap. They start building it up right before the halving, and then all of a sudden, you get blow-off tops again. They're very good with this, So that's the kind of stuff that I like to keep an eye on in between, when they're building up to the halving, like the last 6 months and the 6 months after, and then it starts to go back down so they can, get into the bottoms and start to buy. it changes and it starts to look like, well, it looks like this. It doesn't look, fantastic. It's pretty bad. So, I don't know what I got marked over here. What is this? Not even logged in. I don't even trade on this place. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, I find that odd. So, overall, though, this looks terrible. And this is 69K. Like, this is that spot where people were like, oh, it's over. And then it came back up. And this was the trap. This is the Wyckoff trap. This is 2.2 blow off. This was like the 2.1 and the pullback, and then that's it. And then over here, you wouldn't know that. Like, it could go again. But if you're watching the lower time frames and you're looking at the macro and the news and like what's going on and how positive or negative the news cycle is, you kind of get an idea. They were kind of changing from like, this was like 100% positive news. And all of a sudden, there was like these dudes that were like, it might be the time. And then it was like 80% positive, 20% negative. And now it's almost 100% negative. And we're at a spot where it's, 99% negative and 1% positive. And we could start to grind out. Do we grind out up to 40 on the bear wave and come back down to check a bottom? Probably. That's logical. But as it goes forward, we'll just keep making weather reports. We'll see where it actually goes. We'll look at the actual news of the day, the laws, things that actually matter that change our space. And for right now, I'm sticking on this idea. I'm sticking on playing out this little pattern up to, 22, 23 and staying inside that tight range. So that's my weather report for now. On some awkward news, after this kind of interesting news that I feel like this is the dominant news of the day next to the most negative potential news. I don't know this to be true, but the guy that made MakerDAO, so he was talking about, one of the one of the agencies, and yeah, I don't even know if I can even read this on YouTube. Anyway, so I'll just leave that up. So he had some ideas about, the agencies that run a lot of the intel and security community and seem to be employed by folks that possibly that this kind of goes against. I gotta say, Ross isn't in prison for selling drugs. Ross is in prison for messing with the money supply. You just don't do that. There's some lanes you got to stay in. And if this is true, and what he wrote here is true, what he said is he's messing with the money supply, and this is what's going to happen to him. And lo and behold, it happened. I'm not going to mention any other names. I'm not trying to lose my account, but someone recently also said, hey, it's, XYZ group. And if anything happens to me, it proves to be right. Like I keep saying, it doesn't matter, because if you're right, they do have that power, and that's the amount of power they have, and nobody is going to do anything about it anyway. They're just going to go, that's cool. So when the next headline comes up, you're a forgotten headline. I mean, look at Snowden. He's been, out of the limelight forever, and so is Assange, and all of a sudden, they get drummed back up. And then there's all this crazy stuff going on, and you're bought into the, the whole system, and you're, getting behind, something like this, and then a war starts, and now you're on to the next thing. It's the Wyckoff cycle, man. It's exactly what I'm talking about. There's always going to be a next thing. So if you go and take some hard stand like this against, the people that have already won the wars and have the authority to print, and enforce laws, I mean, you're going to have to kind of expect some repercussions, because you're trying to dethrone power. I mean, it's noble and all that. And you're this, I don't know how you see yourself, like as some kind of like hero crusader of bringing, an alternative money supply to destabilize what's already stabilized. Like, that don't usually go over so well. So if this turns out to be untrue, it's just a little side note. I mean, whatever. If it is true, and he was posting this, a couple days ago, and magically today, for whatever reason, he slipped and fell off, the balcony, or he drank too much and went for a swim and had a natural accident and just happens to line up, like, that's what happens. That's why you don't mess with that kind of stuff. You got to stay in your lane. And if you stay in your lane with these guys and everybody else, you just, you get ahead of the news. You look at the patterns. This is all legal. You can go trade stocks. You can trade bonds. You can trade all these regulated markets, and you can make plenty of money. If you're on the right side of this move going down and you're short, are you really complaining that in the legal market where you put your money in that you demand for more freedom? You demand for more, less regulation. Well, I just read, I forgot to bring up the other piece. The last piece of news for the headline of the day is that it was decided that 97% of all issued tokens on Uniswap and, DeFi were scams. They were all rug pulls. Well, where are there not rug pulls? In regulated markets, and if there are, there's a lot of repercussions, like our friend said, so-and-so, has all the power. Well, so-and-so also regulates when there's a scam. If you go and yank the market, like there's repercussions. You lose your credit card processing. There's deterrences to keep you from doing things like Duquan did and everybody else. They're shooting a little too loose from the hip because there is no regulation. And I just saw a great debate between, Sam and Eric, and they both have good points on both sides. However, the problem is when you leave no regulation on the table, the scumbags come out of the woodwork, and it's not this utopia where, the best and brightest are there and developing and everyone's all kumbaya and it's utopia. It's not that way. What happens is the worst of us come out and go, man, I can sell snake oil, dude, and these guys are too dumb to know it. I'm the better coder. That's the problem. So while I love the innovation and I love the fact it's a little Wild West and, you can still kind of build without, the restrictions. Like Sam said, Sam had great points. If they've got to go check with a regulator every 5 seconds, something that takes 10 seconds to implement becomes weeks. However, when you're playing with people's life fortunes and, money that they need to eat and live on because they trust you, because you're a better marketer than you are an honest person who's trying to build something, that's not okay. So, I was going to touch on those and bring both of those up, but I don't have permission to use, any of that content on that side. So I can just mention, what was said in the debate, and that I think both sides have good points. But the main point is, why even bother with all that? If you're a trader, you can just trade the moves, learn market structure, learn what moves the markets, kick it with the weather reports, and kind of get ahead of the moves. After a while, you start to notice that like when Powell speaks, the market moves about X percentage. If you know that's true, you can pre-position a little bit. If it doesn't move, well, you've got your stop loss and your take profit, in place. If you're good with your risk management, you took an edge play. It didn't work out. No problem. Move on to the next one, because just like this headline here, this guy's going to be forgotten, and he'll be some footnote in the annals of history that gets brought up every once in a while. He gave his life for nothing. Same for Ross. For nothing. They're a footnote in the annals of history. They did nothing. They changed nothing. They're a grease stain on the street, just like our other friend's going to be, who keeps saying, so-and-so has all the power. I mean, I got to say, like, it's probably right. And when you do that, like, generally what happens to you if that's the case? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be complaining that an elephant's an elephant, and then when it shits all over my head, be like, see, I was right. Like, yeah, but your head still got shit on, and no one's going to do anything about your head getting shit on. They're just going to be like, wow, that dude got his head shit on. I don't know, man. I'm not about that. It's not my thing, not my jam. But I did want to bring this up just because of what's going on with the other dude calling people out. That this is kind of the thing that, I don't know, kind of Murphy Law happens. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence 100%, but maybe it's just an elephant shitting on your head. I don't know. Thanks for watching. We'll come with another report soon of some other top news of things that can move the market, change entropy, and maybe break your structure or give you some continuation. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a CPA. I'm some clown on the internet reading headlines, articles, and giving out my views on what I think the charts will do. Do not trade on my advice. This is all for fun and commentary. Please respect that. Seek your own financial advice and do your own due diligence. Thank you.